delve a little bit deeper into this, the question of ethics, because what I've been asking many people in this series of interviews is, are there any themes you wouldn't tackle for a young audience? And that has got to do with ethics, I think.
No, there's no theme I wouldn't tackle, but there is a time and a place. So I would never, ever, apropos rapid response, I wouldn't produce a piece which was a direct response to something. I might for adults, but for younger people it's accidental that Soft Eyes has become a rapid response piece that may be for young people, but I think that that's...
By the time it's performed to young people, it's not going to be that rapid anymore.
Exactly, it's going to be an historical piece, and then it'll have time to mature and settle and marinate a bit, and that's very good, and we'll probably be rewriting it somewhat to give it a more universal theme. If, for example, let's talk specifics here, because we deal so much in vagaries when we're discussing these things. Let's say, for example, that a paedophile ring was uncovered who were using 14-year-old boys and girls in a town in Norway. And one found out that it was local dignitaries and important men in power who were abusing children in the worst possible way. I wouldn't write a play about that. I know writers who would and who have, and it's repugnant. It's rubbish because it's not even good journalism for a start. It's merely a speculative use of an exciting subject matter. You've got to ask yourself, how does it serve these people? And at the end of the day, if a kid isn't being abused, you know, what does that story say to them? They can't do anything. It's not that you can't prevent abuse in that way. I mean, you know. And if a kid is being abused, I'm not sure how helpful it is for them to see it in kulturelle skolesekken, done badly by some mediocre actors. Well, I know from my own experience that doesn't help. You just shut yourself even deeper in. But if something really... If the subject matter has been chosen to serve, if you will, the perceived bravery of the playwright. Because I do think there are playwrights who, dette er kontroversiell now, this is controversial, but I'm going to do it. And it's just like, you know, come on. They can see through it. That's what I'm saying, is that the kids who are going to watch this, they can smell that a mile off. And it very rarely works. Apropos, your question, the only subject matter I can consider right now, well, I was going to say pedophilia, but it's not. It's religion is the real one. Is the Prophet Muhammad, actually. Could one write about the Prophet Muhammad in a multicultural society? Illustrate, bring him to life, which is just a physical manifestation of a cartoon, if you will. Even if it's done respectfully, it's such a inflammable, divisive theme that maybe one is censored. Maybe one is not allowed to touch that particular theme.
But that's for political reasons, not necessarily because of what the kids can handle.
And this is the whole conversation that needs to be had. How many writers for kids are censoring themselves because the grown-ups are saying no? So there is definitely what's reaching our audience is being filtered and censored. They're not, you know, there's one or two people at the moment who are deciding what's on, what kids in the east of Norway are watching in terms of theatre. One or two people are making those decisions. That's very frightening, I think. Is there any subject matter that one wouldn't use as material because the kids in themselves might be affected? Well, here we have to really ask ourselves, what age are you talking about? Because if we're talking about 14, that's one thing, 18 is something else, 13 and 17. These are universes apart. There's such a huge difference between, and within those that class of 13-year-olds. But we can average it out, and we know that there's a sensitivity at the age of 12 and 13, which is when youth starts, that there's a fragility there. One has to be quite careful, I think, in making sure that the subject matter possibly empowers the weakest in the class. I'm not interested in the popular kids who have got lots of friends and feel good about themselves. I actually, that's the point. I always write for the ones who are bullied. Always. Whenever I write for young people to watch or to perform, I am always writing for the one kid in the room who has got terrible secrets and is living in fear. Always. I never give victory to those who already have it. In fact, I usually punish those characters. Quite childish. I'm very curious to know what other people have said in answer to this question, because let's think of the taboo issues. Sex, drugs, cannibalism, murder. That's it, I think. Well, maybe cannibalism isn't such a big thing, but well, sex and drugs and murder.
Yeah, and I mean within
violence,
those you've got,
and within those you've got
you know,
your spectrum, obviously. But those are the things that that the natural order of things is chaos and homicide in the world, as Werner Herzog said, or was it me? Unfortunately, and we're always striving against that. But I've written rape scenes into my work, where you hear it, you don't see it, or it's alluded to. I've written mass murder, which is seen. It's written in the stage instructions that everyone on stage is murdered in a very specific way. Drugs I've never touched when I've been writing for youth, or anyway. But I think that those are the only three, aren't they? Which, well, no, self-harm and eating disorders have become a very big question mark as well. I think about what. Well, that's again where adults I've experienced, where adults have said, you can't write about anorexia because it will encourage girls in the class to be anorectic, or if those who are anorectic see it, they will disintegrate. They're that fragile, you know. I mean, I've heard that literally in debates, and seen work pulled off the schedule because it was considered to be dangerous. Work was considered to be dangerous, but I don't think that the audiences, I think they tolerate. Look, anything we can put on stage is peanuts compared to what they have available and have probably seen already on screen, I think. But there does seem to be a divide between, does one write comedy, easy comedy for kids, or does one write heavy themes that they should experience, you know? And never the twain shall meet. I tried to write black comedy.
Let's talk about your relationship to truth. Let's shift gears slightly. Because you've been working with, you know, the rapid response is documentary material. Do you, if you have to choose between a moment which is factually true or a moment which rings true emotionally or creates a better story, which one do you choose?
The latter. It should be true is often something I think, well, it may not be true now, but it might be one day, and if it's not, it should be true. Or it leads to a truthful understanding of the situation. Difference between artistic license and outright lies, of course, but I might, for example, say 8,000 instead of 12,000 refugees because 8 has a better scan in the meter of the rhythm, for example. I might, but I might not. I might try and write it properly so that either I don't use 12 at all. So when it comes to very, very specific facts, times and places, I would rather be vague and say that year than to lie outright and replace it with something that's more convenient, with a specific which is not factual. I'm just trying to think of when I've ever been in a position where I've had to do that, and no, I think I'm going to change my answer and say I will always choose to be truthful and factual, and if I'm not able to do so, I'll find a different approach rather than lie.